Someone you trust can steal your child's future right from under your nose. Can you ever really trust what you see, or is the truth always hiding in plain sight? If you had told me a year ago that my marriage, my security, and my daughter's future would all be shattered by a single text message, I would have laughed in disbelief. But betrayal has a way of finding you when you least expect it, even in the middle of an ordinary Tuesday in suburban Seattle. My name is Rachel Miller. I'm 51, a high school teacher, and I've always prided myself on being practical, level-headed, and the kind of mom who has a backup plan for every disaster. But nothing could have prepared me for the disaster that would strike my family that spring. It started with my daughter Ava, 13 years old, sitting on our living room sofa, clutching a crumpled letter from her middle school. There was an email printout beside her and tears in her bright green eyes. Ava is whip-smart, a computer whiz, and the heart of my world. Seeing her so devastated set every maternal alarm blaring. "Mom," she whispered. "Our college account? It's gone. There's nothing left in the fund. Did you take it out for something?" My stomach dropped. The Miller College Fund was sacred. Every paycheck for the past 13 years, I'd scraped a little extra to put away for Ava's future. I'd watched it grow, knowing that one day it would be her ticket to college, to a life I could never have imagined for myself. I shook my head, rushing to check my email. That's when I saw the message from Richard, my husband, Ava's father, and the man I'd trusted for 18 years. His words stung like acid. "Rachel, I know you'll be upset, but I needed the money for an urgent investment opportunity. I'm in San Diego with Kelly. We'll talk about the divorce when I get back." Kelly. The name twisted my insides. Kelly, the 27-year-old yoga instructor I'd welcomed into our home, whose car I'd jump-started in a storm, who I'd defended when the neighbors gossiped about her friendship with my husband. The Kelly I now realized was my replacement. I wanted to scream. I wanted to break something, to make Richard feel a fraction of the pain he'd just unleashed on his own daughter. But I couldn't afford to fall apart. Not now, not in front of Ava. I pulled her into a tight hug, forcing my voice to stay calm. "It's not over, baby. I promise you, no one, not even your father, gets to take your future away." Ava sniffed, then wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. Her jaw set, stubborn and strong, so much like mine. "Mom, I think Dad left a trail. Want me to check?" "That's my girl." I nodded, and she hurried off to her room, already pulling up her laptop and firing off code like it was second nature. As she worked, my mind spun back over the last few months, piecing together the puzzle I'd ignored for too long. There had been late-night phone calls, hushed arguments about missed opportunities, and feeling trapped. Richard had taken more business trips to California, always returning with expensive gifts and excuses. I'd found receipts for fancy dinners, unexplained cash withdrawals, and at least one diamond bracelet that never made it home. I'd asked questions, but Richard always brushed me off. "You worry too much, Rachel. Trust me for once, will you?" I trusted him. I let him handle the taxes, the investments, even our daughter's college fund. God, I feel so stupid now. But the worst part wasn't the betrayal. It was the humiliation. Richard had announced by email, not just to me but to the school financial office, that he'd be the one managing Ava's college account from now on. He'd transferred the funds to a new account I couldn't access. I only learned about it when the school called, concerned that our payments had stopped and Ava's scholarship was at risk. I sat on the sofa, trying not to let the world spin. My phone buzzed again, a new email from Richard. He was blunt, even gleeful. "I know this is hard, but Kelly needs help getting on her feet, and I deserve to be happy for once. Please don't make this ugly." Ugly? He emptied his own child's college fund for a woman barely older than our babysitter, and he didn't want me to make it ugly. I took a deep breath, channeling every ounce of self-control I had left. "Ava, can you trace where the money went?" She nodded, eyes fierce behind her glasses. "If Dad used his work laptop or phone, I can find it. He never deletes his cookies." She was right. Richard was careless with tech, always assuming he was the smartest person in the room. Within an hour, Ava had cracked into his cloud storage and found a string of emails between Richard and Kelly. They spelled out everything. Richard had moved $67,000 from the college fund into a Cayman Islands account. He even sent Kelly a screenshot bragging about it. No way Rachel finds this. She still writes her passwords on sticky notes. Ava glared at the screen. He thinks you're dumb, Mom. I felt my anger harden into something cold and sharp. He's about to find out how wrong he is. Ava started downloading every file, every transfer record, even security footage of Kelly withdrawing cash from a bank in San Diego. I called my lawyer, Susan, my college roommate, now one of Seattle's toughest divorce attorneys. I sent her everything Ava and I had gathered. Susan called back within minutes. Rachel, I'm so sorry, but you and Ava are going to come out of this stronger. We'll freeze the accounts, press charges if needed, and get that money back. As the sun set over Seattle, I hugged Ava and whispered, we're going to fight this, and we're going to win. For the next 24 hours, my life moved in slow motion, every moment colored by a sense of disbelief and simmering fury. I couldn't eat. I barely slept. I replayed Richard's smug email in my mind again and again, the words echoing in my chest like a taunt. Kelly needs help getting on her feet. I deserve to be happy for once. The man who had shared my bed for nearly 2 decades had become a stranger overnight. A stranger who had no problem stealing from his own daughter to fund his fantasy life with a woman young enough to call me ma'am. But rage would get me nowhere. I knew that from years of dealing with high schoolers. Sometimes you have to outthink the bully, not just outshout him. Ava was curled up next to me in bed, her laptop aglow with spreadsheets and email chains. She didn't say much, but her fingers flew over the keys, collecting every digital crumb Richard left behind. Every so often she'd pause, her face tight with concentration. He tried to hide it, she muttered, but he's really bad at covering his tracks. At 2 a.m., Ava finally set her laptop aside and pulled the covers over her head. I lay awake beside her, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing. I thought of every time Richard had promised to take care of us. Every family dinner where he'd talked about responsibility, loyalty, trust. How many of those words had ever been real? The next morning, I showered and dressed for war. Smart blazer, crisp jeans, the necklace Ava gave me last Christmas. No more sweatpants. No more victim. Ava watched me quietly from the kitchen table, cereal untouched. What happens now, Mom? She whispered. We get our money back, I said, and we show your father who he's really dealing with. First step, I called my principal and told him I'd be taking a family emergency leave. He was sympathetic, but I could hear the worry in his voice. Is there anything I can do? He asked. I hesitated, then realized I might need every ally I could get. If anyone calls asking questions about my finances or employment, please let me know immediately, I said. He promised. Next, I called Susan, my lawyer. She was already way ahead of me. I've started the paperwork for an emergency asset freeze. With the evidence you and Ava collected, I think we can get an injunction within 48 hours. I felt a weight lift from my chest, just a little. Thank you, Susan. I don't care about Richard, but I want Ava's future protected. It's not just about the money, Rachel, she said gently. It's about principle. I hung up and looked around the kitchen. Every inch of this house was a reminder of the life I thought I'd built with Richard. The broken tile I'd meant to fix, the refrigerator covered in Ava's honor roll certificates, the key hook he'd installed by the back door. Now it felt like a stage set, all the props rearranged for a different family. By lunchtime, the phone started ringing. Richard's sister, then his mother, then our mutual friends. All of them were suddenly concerned about me, about Ava, about Richard's difficult situation. One friend, Lisa, called to say, Richard told us you emptied the accounts and ran off with a gym instructor. I actually laughed. Let me guess, he says I'm unstable, right? Lisa hesitated. He did say you've been different lately. I nearly dropped the phone. Lisa, please don't believe anything Richard says. He's lying to everyone. And if he asks you for money, hang up. She was silent, then finally whispered, I'm so sorry, Rachel. Ava overheard the conversation. When I hung up, she was standing there, hands balled into fists. He's telling people you're crazy, she said flatly. Let him talk, I said. People will see the truth soon enough. Ava gave me a sad, knowing smile. Dad's not as smart as he thinks. He used the same password for everything. I got into his cloud storage. There's more. She sat at the kitchen table and opened a folder full of Richard's personal notes, receipts, and emails with Kelly. Look at this, she said, clicking open a PDF, a draft for a new will, naming Kelly as his life insurance beneficiary. He was going to cut us out completely. I bit my lip, struggling not to cry. You're amazing, kiddo, but I'm so sorry you have to go through this. Ava shook her head. No, Mom, I want to help. He thinks we're weak, but we're not. By mid-afternoon, Susan called with an update. The judge had granted an emergency freeze on the college fund and all remaining joint assets. Richard's Cayman account was flagged. We just bought you time, Susan said. Don't say anything to Richard yet. Let him stew. That evening, I cooked dinner, mac and cheese, Ava's favorite, and tried to keep things normal. But Ava was restless. She kept checking her phone, glancing out the window, chewing her nails. What if Dad tries something else? She asked. He might, I admitted, but we'll be ready. You and I were a team. At midnight, just as I was dozing off on the couch, my phone buzzed. A text from Richard. Rachel, you've gone too far. Kelly is pregnant. I'm starting a new family. Let go. Something inside me snapped. I stared at the words, feeling nothing but icy clarity. I handed the phone to Ava. She read it, jaw clenched. We're not going anywhere, she whispered. We're not giving up. Neither am I. The next morning, a letter arrived from the bank, confirmation that the asset freeze had been executed. Richard's access was cut off. I smiled, feeling the first spark of hope in days. That afternoon, Ava sat me down. Mom, she said, I want to do more. I want to write a letter to the school. I want them to know what happened. I want to make sure this doesn't happen to other kids. My heart swelled with pride. Let's do it together. As we typed side by side, I realized Richard could take our money, but he couldn't take our strength, our brains, or our bond as mother and daughter. He would regret underestimating us. The days after the asset freeze dragged by, each hour an exercise in anxious waiting. I kept the house as normal as possible, packing lunches, checking homework, folding laundry, while the truth hung over us like a storm cloud. Ava and I barely spoke about Richard unless we had to. Every time her phone dinged, her shoulders tensed, and I wondered if it was another text from him, another blow to her trust in the world. It was Sunday morning when I found Ava at the dining room table with a mug of cocoa and her battered old laptop, staring at a list of dates and times. I'm trying to remember the first time Dad lied about money, she said quietly, not looking up. Not just now, but before all of this. I sat down beside her, heart pounding. I'd been doing the same thing in my head, tracing the cracks back through our life, seeing all the little betrayals I'd ignored. When you were 8, I said, he forgot to pay your summer camp fee. He told you the check got lost in the mail, but I found the unopened invoice in his car weeks later. Ava's face twisted. He told me he'd fix it, but I missed the first week of camp. That was the summer he took those business trips, wasn't it? I nodded, the memory suddenly clear. Richard returning home late, smelling of cologne and someone else's perfume. The sharp pang in my stomach. The emergency work meetings that always seemed to fall on weekends or holidays. And always a new excuse. I found an old birthday card from Kelly, Ava said, voice shaking with anger. It was in Dad's desk drawer. She called him her hero. The date was 2 years ago. He was already cheating, wasn't he? The realization stung, but I refused to let it break me. Yes, I said simply. He was. The rest of the day, the memories came in a flood. The canceled anniversary trip because funds were tight. The missing checkbook. The sudden urge to refinance our mortgage for a better rate, just before a large withdrawal from our savings. I saw myself through new eyes, a woman who wanted so badly to believe in her marriage that she ignored every sign of rot. Ava pulled up her email, searching for digital traces of the past. Look at this, Mom. She pointed at a string of emails, all from Richard's work address. He'd tell us he was going to conferences, but he never registered for any of them. And the hotel he stayed at last July? It was in San Diego, Kelly's hometown. There's a receipt for 2 spa treatments. Bitterness twisted in my chest. He never even took me to a spa in our entire marriage. Ava laughed, a harsh, hollow sound. Dad always said he was working for us, but he was just working for himself and Kelly. We sat there, picking over the bones of our old life, and I realized how much Ava had lost, not just her college fund, but her faith in her father. I wanted to promise her that things would get better, but I'd made enough empty promises. Instead, I hugged her tight and said, we're going to build something new. just us. That evening, I heard from Susan. "I have more news," she said, her tone tight. "Richard's lawyer called. He's denying everything. He claims you coerced him, that the account transfers were mutual." I almost laughed. "Does he have any proof?" Susan sighed. "Not unless he can forge your signature. But Rachel, he's pushing for joint custody. He says you're emotionally unstable. I think he's trying to rattle you into backing down." My heart froze. He wants to use Ava as a pawn? It's a scare tactic. Don't give him the satisfaction. I hung up, shaken. For the first time I truly felt afraid, not for the money, but for Ava. I remembered every little slight, every moment Richard made me question my sanity. "You're too sensitive, Rachel. You're overreacting. Stop making everything about you." Now, with the whole world watching, he wanted to paint me as the villain. Ava saw my face and wrapped her arms around me. "We're gonna win, Mom. I know we will." Her confidence fueled me. That night, I started keeping a diary. Every call, every text, every memory. I wrote down everything Richard had ever done to undermine us, every instance of gaslighting or manipulation. The diary became my weapon, my shield, a record that I would show to anyone who doubted my story. Over the next week, Richard tried everything to reach Ava. Calls, texts, even emails to her school account. At first, she ignored him. But finally, late one night, she called me into her room, her phone shaking in her hand. "He says he wants to explain everything. He says you're lying, that you took the money yourself." I sat beside her, anger burning. "He's desperate, honey. Don't believe him." She nodded, but tears streamed down her face. "He ruined everything, Mom. I don't want to talk to him ever again." I stroked her hair, holding her as she sobbed. "He can't hurt us anymore, Ava. I promise you." The next morning, a surprise, an envelope shoved under our front door. Inside, a single page, an apology from Richard. He begged for forgiveness, swore he'd make it right, asked for one last chance to explain in person. I showed it to Ava, who rolled her eyes. "He's just scared because you and Susan are winning." But that wasn't all. Ava, ever the tech genius, noticed something odd about the printed letter. A faint watermark from Richard's office printer. She ran a quick scan, then pulled up a document hidden deep in Richard's Google Drive. A backup copy of his plan to drain the college fund and flee to San Diego. It was dated 3 months earlier and listed every step, every fake excuse, every lie. Ava looked at me, triumphant. "He can't deny this, Mom. We have proof. All of it." For the first time since the nightmare began, I let myself breathe. Maybe, just maybe, the past was finally behind us. By the time spring break rolled around, the tension in our house felt electric. I'd always thought the calm before the storm was just a saying. Now, I knew better. Our world was already upended, but the real confrontation was coming. And neither Ava nor I were going to let Richard walk away with our dignity, let alone our future. Ava was determined, her confidence growing with each new piece of evidence she unearthed. Her latest find, the step-by-step plan Richard had written for siphoning off Ava's college fund, was now sitting in both my lawyer's inbox and my own. Susan, after seeing the files, called it open and shut fraud. "He's cooked, Rachel," she said. "But you need to be ready for pushback. He's going to get desperate." Desperate was right. Richard had switched tactics overnight. Gone was the cocky, taunting tone of his texts and emails. Now, every message was an attempt to guilt-trip or gaslight. "You don't understand the pressure I'm under. Kelly's pregnant. She needs support. Ava will forgive me if you stop poisoning her against me." The emotional whiplash would have broken me a year ago, but now it only fueled my resolve. One night, while I was grading papers, Ava burst into the room. "Mom, come here. You have to see this." She spun her laptop around, displaying a folder of new files, bank statements, emails, and even a few audio recordings. "Dad's been using his old work laptop for everything," she said. "He's logged into public Wi-Fi without a VPN. I tracked his email traffic. There's more. He tried to wire more money to Kelly last week, but the bank froze the transaction." I stared at my daughter, both amazed and heartbroken that a 13-year-old had to use her tech skills to protect her family. But I was also fiercely proud. We organized the evidence and sent everything to Susan. She responded within the hour. "This is it. You and Ava have done what most forensic accountants can't. Rachel, you need to prepare. Richard will be served a restraining order and a formal civil complaint tomorrow." That night, Ava and I lay side by side in her bed, our hands entwined. "Are you scared?" she whispered. "Yes," I admitted. "But not for us, for him. He's underestimated us every step of the way. That's about to change." The next morning, there was a knock at the door. I opened it to find 2 uniformed officers and a process server, papers in hand. "Are you Rachel Miller?" "Yes." They handed me a thick envelope and a clipboard. "We're serving these to Mr. Richard Miller. Is he at this address?" I shook my head. "He's with someone else now, but you'll find him at this address." I handed them a slip of paper with Kelly's new condo in San Diego. The officers nodded. "Thank you for your cooperation, ma'am. You did the right thing." After they left, Ava stood in the doorway, eyes shining. "It's happening, isn't it?" "Yes, honey," I said. "It really is." What followed was a flurry of chaos. Calls from Richard, screaming voicemails, threats to expose me as a liar, even a few frantic texts to Ava that I made her block. Susan reassured us, "Ignore him. The courts have everything they need." Meanwhile, the community around us rallied in support. Word had spread, thanks in no small part to Ava's bravery in sharing her story with the school principal and a few trusted teachers. Suddenly, parents I barely knew were offering encouragement, bringing over home-cooked meals, even sharing their own stories of betrayal and resilience. It was a reminder that we were not alone, and that standing up for ourselves was never something to be ashamed of. Ava's principal invited us both to a private meeting. "Ava, I'm so sorry for what you're going through," he said, eyes gentle behind his glasses. "But you're an inspiration, not just to other students, but to us as adults." He announced that the school would help Ava apply for emergency scholarships and offered counseling support. "You have an entire community behind you," he said. As we walked out of the school, Ava turned to me. "You think Dad ever realized how much he could lose?" I squeezed her hand. "Not until now." That weekend, Susan called with an update. "Rachel, the bank reversed the attempted wire transfer and is flagging all Richard's accounts for investigation. Kelly is officially named as a person of interest, and the police want to interview Richard for potential fraud and identity theft." It was almost too much to process. But Ava just smiled, fierce and unbowed. "Can I tell my friends yet?" "Tell them whatever you want, sweetheart. You earned it." The showdown came sooner than I expected. Monday morning, Richard himself stormed up our driveway, red-faced, yelling, "Rachel, you ruined my life. This is all your fault." Ava hid behind me, phone ready to record. I stood my ground. "You ruined your own life, Richard. I just protected our daughter." He sneered, waving a stack of papers. "You think you've won? You're just making things worse for everyone." I met his gaze. "No, Richard. For the first time, you're facing consequences." He blustered, threatened to call the police, even accused me of corrupting Ava. But the moment he saw I was unmoved, and that Ava was recording everything, he backed down, mumbling curses as he slunk away. I locked the door behind him and hugged Ava tight. Later that day, Susan called with the final word. "He's out. The judge granted you full control of the college fund, sole custody, and a restraining order. Richard is facing charges. Kelly, too." Ava burst into tears, not from fear or sadness, but relief. "We did it, Mom. We really did." And for the first time since this nightmare began, I believed her. I woke up the morning after Richard's defeat to a strange, liberating silence. The constant dread that had haunted our home for weeks was finally gone. For the first time in months, I didn't check my phone out of fear. I just lay in bed, listening to Ava's soft breathing in the next room, and let myself smile. We were free. Not just from Richard's schemes, but from the shadows he'd cast over our lives for years. The news traveled fast. By breakfast, my phone was buzzing with messages from friends, neighbors, even a few parents I barely knew from Ava's school. They'd heard about Richard's arrest, about the charges against Kelly, about the judge's decision. Instead of pity, every text was a message of admiration or support. "You're an inspiration. So proud of you and Ava. You're the strongest mom I know." Ava grinned as she scrolled through her own messages. Her friends sent memes, gifs, and dozens of heart emojis. "Mom, everyone keeps saying I'm a hero," she said, blushing a little. "But really, I just did what I had to do." We both did. "You're more than a hero, Ava," I told her. "You're proof that you never let anyone decide your future for you. Not even your own father." Life didn't magically become perfect overnight. There were meetings with Susan and the bank, hours spent untangling what Richard had done to our finances, and paperwork that seemed endless. But for the first time, every signature, every conversation felt like taking back a piece of what we'd lost. Ava's principal called us into his office again a few days later. This time, he had good news. Rachel, the school district has approved a special scholarship for Ava, and several local organizations want to help as well. Ava's story has already inspired a new initiative to help kids whose families experience financial betrayal. I blinked back tears as Ava beamed. She's not just getting her college fund back, she's helping make sure no one else has to go through this alone. Afterward, Ava and I went out for milkshakes, our favorite tradition. Just us girls. Sitting across from each other in that little diner, I felt a strange, bittersweet gratitude for everything we'd endured. "Do you ever wish things had been different?" I asked her quietly. "That Dad had just been better?" Ava thought for a long moment, swirling her straw. "Sometimes. But if he hadn't messed up, I might never have learned how strong we are. I might have thought we needed him to be okay. But we don't, Mom. We never did." The next few weeks were a blur of new beginnings. The restraining order kept Richard away, and his legal troubles mounted as investigators uncovered more evidence of fraud. Kelly vanished from social media, her carefully crafted wellness influencer persona unraveling as her involvement became public. Every time another headline popped up, "Local man indicted for stealing daughter's college fund," I felt a little lighter. Meanwhile, Ava dove into her coding projects with new passion. She started a blog for teens about online safety, sharing her story, anonymously at first, and offering advice on protecting personal data. Her story went viral. Soon, parents from across the country were emailing me for tips, and Ava was interviewed on a local radio station. When the host asked what she wanted to do next, Ava said, "I want to help other kids know that even if someone tries to take everything from you, they can't take your brain, your skills, or your future." I couldn't have been prouder. For me, healing came slowly in small victories. I started a new side business, financial coaching for women, especially moms and daughters rebuilding after betrayal. I wrote articles, spoke at support groups, and connected with other women who'd survived similar heartbreak. Every story was different, but the theme was the same. We are so much stronger than we think. One sunny afternoon, Ava and I packed a picnic and went to a nearby park. As we ate sandwiches under a big maple tree, Ava looked at me, serious. "Do you think Dad will ever try to come back? What if he says he's sorry?" I thought about it, then shook my head. If he ever does, that's his problem, not ours. We don't owe him anything, not forgiveness, not a place in our lives. We're moving forward. You get to decide who belongs in your story. Ava smiled and leaned against my shoulder. "I like our story, Mom, even the hard parts, because we wrote the ending." Summer turned to fall. Ava was accepted into a coding summer camp on a full scholarship, and her blog kept growing. I found myself looking in the mirror and recognizing the woman staring back for the first time in years. No longer a wife betrayed, but a mother, a survivor, and a fighter. The court process dragged on, but I stopped fearing each hearing. The truth was on our side, and every time Richard tried to twist the story, the evidence, meticulously gathered by Ava, spoke louder than any lie he could tell. He lost everything he tried to steal from us: money, reputation, even Kelly. Most importantly, he lost the right to control our lives ever again. Months later, on Ava's 14th birthday, we stood together in the backyard of our new home, a cozy, sun-filled place we picked out together. As she blew out her candles, I watched her make a wish, her eyes shining with hope. Later that night, she whispered, "Mom, do you think we'll ever forget all this?" I hugged her close. "Maybe not, but we'll never let it define us. This is just one chapter. The best is still to come." And I believed it with all my heart. From the ashes of betrayal, we built something stronger than I could have ever imagined. Not just a new life, but a legacy of resilience, courage, and empowerment. A story I hope every mother, every daughter, every woman will remember when life tries to steal their light. Because the truth is, we are always stronger than the people who betray us. And sometimes the greatest victory is simply refusing to let them write your ending. So the story has ended, and if you're still here, my wonderful friends, I know this journey has touched your heart in some way. What I want you to take from all of this is simple. Even when you're betrayed, you are not broken. True strength comes from refusing to let someone else define your story. As the heterodox wisdom says, healing is not becoming who you were before, but letting yourself grow beyond what hurt you. If this story spoke to you, please comment below and share your own experiences, because you're not alone. Like, share, and subscribe for more real stories and empowerment. Let's write our endings together, stronger, wiser, and free.